Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. How's Eddie Frederick?
So glad you can join us. Venezuela attempts to ignite row against Guyana for territory as Guyana continues to find oil. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday, 22nd September 2023, brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. Details when we return.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Welcome back. On Tuesday, Guyana's western neighbor Venezuela issued a statement rejecting the oil auction. President Irfan Ali asserted that Guyana reserves the right to pursue economic development. Shamar Alin provides details in this HGP Nightly news item.
Venezuela on Tuesday rejected the ongoing bidding rounds for oil blocks, noting that the maritime areas are pending delimitation between the two countries. The Spanish-speaking country noted that Guyana does not have sovereign rights over these maritime areas, and if any action is carried out, it violates international law. But President Irfan Ali said Guyana reserves the right to pursue economic development activities. The Guyanese leader said the unilateral attempt by Venezuela to restrict the exercise by Guyana of its sovereignty and sovereign rights would be wholly inconsistent with the Geneva Agreement and the rule of international law. Guyana's inaugural oil auction closed on September 12th with 14 blocks up for grabs. The Spanish-speaking nation is attempting to claim more than 2/3 of Guyana's land in Essequibo and a portion of its exclusive economic zone. Venezuela ramped up its claims after more than 9 billion barrels of oil have been discovered in the area over the last 6 years. Among other things, Guyana is seeking the ICJ to adjudge and declare that the 1899 award is valid and binding upon Guyana and Venezuela. Reporter for HGP Nightly News, Shamar Allen.
FTX to sue Sam Bankman-Fried's parents. More in this ZNS news item out of the Bahamas.
Over in the U.S., Joseph Bankman and Barbara Fried, both Stanford law professors, have stood close to the side of their son, former cryptocurrency billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried, throughout the implosion of his company FTX, his brief imprisonment in the Bahamas, subsequent extradition to the United States, and court appearance, house arrest, an upcoming trial. But there's now a new development that places the spotlight directly on the scholars. Numerous online reports cite that FTX has sued the two in hopes of recovering millions of dollars in misappropriated funds. SBF's parents reportedly exploited their access and influence within the FTX enterprise to enrich themselves. Now, according to CNN Business, the lawsuit against Bankman and Fried accuses the couple of discussing with their son transferring a $10 million cash gift and a $16.4 million luxury property in the Bahamas to them, even as the company was on the verge of insolvency. The allegation feeds into turnaround specialist John Ray's claims that Bankman-Fried ran the now bankrupt crypto exchange as a family business and misappropriated billions in customer funds for the benefit of a small circle of insiders, including his parents. Bankman and Fried's attorneys have dismissed the claims as completely false. So this latest development comes only days ahead of their 31-year-old son's trial on October 3rd. He stands accused of stealing billions of dollars in FTX customer funds. The disgraced wonderkind faces a possible sentence of decades behind bars if found guilty.
Over in Jamaica, SSL saga makes a U-turn as government will no longer offer financial assistance to SSL. More in this TVJ News item.
The Stocks and Securities Limited SSL saga has taken another turn.
SSL received the insurance payout of $1 million on Thursday, September 7th, which enabled SSL to settle the remainder of their August staff salary bill. With this new development, no taxpayer money, no Government of Jamaica resources, no public funds have or will be used to support SSL in the payment of any of its employees or any other of its expenses.
Earlier this month, the government announced that it would pay the salaries of 22 employees because SSL's income could not support its overhead costs. This was met with public outrage. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark clarified the government's position, explaining that the funds being used are technically not taxpayers, but the assets seized from illicit enrichment cases. But that didn't sway the public either. Now, opposition spokesman on finance Julian Robinson says this news is much more comforting.
Yes, it is a relief to the public that we will no longer have to foot the bill for the salaries of the employees. But we need full transparency.
Mr. Robinson, however, has some questions.
Will the government be refunded for all the expenditures that have been undertaken to support the SSL investigation? Not just the payment of the staff salaries, but the receiver funds, the funds to pay the forensic auditing firm, and any other costs that would have been incurred either by the FSC and the FID. I believe it's important for the government to also be fully transparent and indicate to the public what it has spent so far on this investigation so that the public knows.
But what does the insurance payout mean for clients of SSL? Citizens with US dollar accounts, however, will take a longer time to access their funds. And as the investigation continues, the finance minister anticipates that the company will wind down to about 8 employees by the end of the year. And as it relates to who has complete authority over SSL, well, according to the finance minister, that's a matter for the courts. Jamila Maitland, TVJ News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
In association with our friends at
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
In St. Kitts and Nevis, the Prime Minister there, Terence Drew, paid homage to the 5 national heroes during a significant ceremony at the National Heroes Park on Saturday, September 16th, in honor of National Heroes Day. Prime Minister Drew emphasized that the legacies of these heroes serve as a powerful reminder that dedication has no boundaries. Andre Huey of SKN News reports.
Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew paid homage to St. Kitts and Nevis' 5 national heroes during a significant ceremony at the National Heroes Park on Saturday, September 16th, in honor of National Heroes Day. That these heroes' legacies serve as a powerful reminder that dedication has no boundaries.
These heroes' legacies remind us that dedication knows no bounds. They encourage us to view failures not as setbacks, but as opportunities to grow sustainably, develop maturely, and build resiliency. Just as they did, we too can transform our lives, our communities, our nation, our region, and indeed the world. Heroes are not confined to history books. They walk among us every day. They are the educators shaping young minds, the healthcare workers saving lives, the community leaders forging bonds, and the individuals who, through small acts of kindness, make our nation stronger.
Dr. Drew described the nation's first national hero, Right Excellence Sir Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw, as a true embodiment of an indomitable spirit rising from humble beginnings in St. Paul's to lead the nation. The late Right Excellent Sir Caleb Azariah Paul Southwell he described as a tireless advocate for people's rights. The late Right Excellent Sir Joseph Nathaniel France The Prime Minister described as a champion of social justice and healthcare, whose dedication led to the naming of the General Hospital in his honor. Additionally, he pointed to the late Right Excellence Sir Simeon Daniel, the first Premier of Nevis and the fourth national hero, for significantly improving the lives of Nevisians and emphasized the importance of local leadership. The Prime Minister noted that the Right Excellent Right Honourable Sir Kennedy Alphonse Simmons, the Federation's fifth and only living national hero, served as the first Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis and played a pivotal role in shaping the nation's governance and policies during its formative years. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline.
The recent stabbing of a student in the city of Basseterre has Education Minister Sean Edward repeating his displeasure with student loitering. Details in this report.
Education Minister Sean Edward is again warning against student loitering in the city. The minister's comments come on the heels of a stabbing incident in Castries, following which a student of the St. Mary's College had to be hospitalized. Edward reveals that a meeting with heads of various learning institutions in the Castries Basin is on the horizon to adequately deal with the issue of student loitering.
Well, you know my position, the position of the Ministry of Education on loitering. It is something that we are working feverishly to get under control. We're not where we are, but I think we've made significant headway in that respect. What I can tell you is that a meeting will be convened very shortly with the principals of the secondary schools in the Castries Basin as a first step to see how internally we can get students to just go straight home after dismissal instead of congregating in the city and creating problems for the public, for law enforcement personnel, and even for themselves. So the first step, as I said, is to call the principals of the secondary schools in the Castries Basin to a meeting, and there we will formulate plans and take a position in terms of what we will be doing as the next step.
Edward insists law enforcement will continue to be part of the conversation. In the meantime, however, efforts are being made to appeal to the student body to find merit in the instruction of the Education Ministry.
I know the police, they've been working very closely with the Ministry of Education where that is concerned, but at the end of the day, before we can resort to the deployment of law enforcement personnel, which at times would be necessary, I think we have to appeal to the consciousness of the students and to show them the merits in going straight home after school and not loiter in the city, thereby creating problems as we've seen in recent weeks. But I'm very optimistic that we'll get to the bottom of this. All is not lost. It's very unfortunate when students have to use weapons and have to engage in fights. I'm particularly disturbed by the number of fights and infractions we've had since the reopening of school. But I am not at all perturbed in terms of the Ministry of Education working with its stakeholders, not being able to come together and to implement plans that will ameliorate the situation.
The Education Ministry continues to have a zero-tolerance approach to student indiscipline, and Edward reveals that in the coming weeks, measures will be put in place which will significantly hamper these actions. For the DBS News World, Jason Narius reporting.
Oil prices have reached a 10-month high of US $95.34.
The hike was in reaction to Saudi Arabia and Russia announcing they will cut production through the end of the year. The international benchmark, Brent crude oil, reached $95.34 on Tuesday, the highest since November 2022. Brent crude's per barrel price broke the $90 price mark for the first time since November, according to Reuters.
Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley renewed calls for the restructuring of the international financial architecture.
In Barbados, Prime Minister Mia Mottley Monday reiterated her call for a restructuring of the international financial architecture, indicating that the call for financial reform is really not about governance. For us, it is about longer money, cheaper money, and being able to use it for the purposes for which we need to reduce all of our inequalities and to achieve the elements of the Sustainable Development Goals, Mottley said. The President of the United Nations General Assembly, Ambassador Dennis Francis of Trinidad and Tobago, convened the two-day 2023 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, also known as the SDG Summit. The SDG Summit serves as a pivotal milestone in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, marking the halfway point of its implementation. It presents a crucial opportunity to accelerate our collective efforts towards sustainable development.
am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean.
In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family, yes we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.